Sí.
Bueno, entonces bienvenidas y bienvenidos al webinar Latin America and the Caribbean Peace Under Threat. Mi nombre es Evelyn Guisi, soy de Brasil y será un gusto acompañarles en la moderación de esta sesión. Estaré hablando principalmente en español, sin embargo, como no es mi lengua materna, si en algún momento algo no queda claro, con gusto puedo repetir o cambiar al inglés para asegurar que la comunicación sea fluida.
Hello,
Antes
I'm
de
Evelyn
iniciar,
Christie.
una breve
I will
indicación
be giving
importantes.
the
La
moderation
interpretación
in Spanish. It's not
simultánea
my native
inglés-español está
language.
disponible.
So
Por
if I
favor,
need
active el
clarifications,
canal
I'll switch over to
correspondiente.
English.
Y esta sesión está siendo
Please make sure
grabada y la
to
grabación estará
uh,
disponible
connect
posteriormente también.
the
Para facilitar el desarrollo del
translation
webinar, los
services on.
micrófonos del público están en silencio por ahora.
Please
Y
make sure
pueden
to
enviar sus
silence your
preguntas,
microphones.
sus dudas por el chat o
And you
guardarlas para el
can
espacio
send
de
your
preguntas y
questions
respuestas
and
en la última
commentaries in
parte
the
del
chat,
webinar.
or wait for
Vamos
the
a
commentary
permitir
space
un
at
par
the
de
end
minutos
of
para que más personas se
the
conecten y
presentation.
activen
We're
la
going to wait a couple of
interpretación y
minutes
después
for everyone
podemos
to connect and
empezar. Veo que
start
el
the
tiempo
interpretation.
ya está corriendo.
We're on the clock, so we'll start soon.
Bueno, ¿todos listos con la interpretación?
All right.
Sí.
Listo.
Bueno,
I'm
vamos a
ready
empezar.
with
Entonces,
interpretation.
buenas tardes. De nuevo, es un honor darles la bienvenida al webinar.
Well, we're going to
Hoy
start
vamos a explorar un tema
to
urgente, las
start
amenazas a la paz en las
the
Américas,
presentation.
con especial
The
atención al impacto de las
threats
acciones
to
ilegales
peace
y
in the
provocadoras del
Americas
gobierno
with
de los Estados Unidos contra
references to
Venezuela y otros
the
países de la región.
attacks against peace
Y
by
desde la política
governments against Venezuela and
militar
other
hasta las presiones
nations,
económicas, estas
and
acciones constituyen
includes
una
military
grave
pressure,
amenaza para la paz en nuestro continente y han
economic
sido
actions
justificadas
against
bajo
countries
estrategias
that
como
are a great
la
threat to
Estrategia de
peace that
Seguridad
have been
Nacional. Entonces,
justified
los recientes bombardeos
defense
reportados en
against
Venezuela y el
defense
secuestro de su
for U.S.
presidente
national
son ejemplos
security.
claros de cómo estas
The president
dinámicas
said
han afectado el orden
Venezuela
internacional y la
uh,
soberanía de los
is
pueblos.
a great threat
En este
to
contexto,
order and
la verdad es que demanda una respuesta
countries.
firme desde los movimientos sociales y las
We want
fuerzas
to
que
give
abogan por la
a
paz, la
clear
justicia y la
response
solidaridad internacional.
from the space
En este
of
seminario
social movement spaces
presentaremos
uh,
análisis sobre
in
la
favor
propaganda y
of
las
peace.
mentiras difundidas por el régimen de Trump.
We argue
Compartiremos
that the
testimonios desde
lies that
Venezuela
are
y
spread
otros
by the Trump
lugares y
administration,
dialogaremos sobre
sharing
visiones
testimonies from
alternativas de
Venezuela and
relaciones
other places,
interamericanas basadas en la
and
paz,
giving
la
examples
dignidad
of
humana y la seguridad común.
different options that we have
Este
for
esfuerzo es posible gracias al
between
trabajo conjunto
countries of
de
the Americas
organizaciones
and creating
internacionales
spaces for peace.
comprometidas con la paz. El International
This
Peace
space
Bureau,
is
IPB, una de las
federated
federaciones de
by
paz más
the
antiguas del mundo,
International Peace
dedicada a la
Bureau,
visión de un mundo sin guerra y con
United
una
for the
larga
Peace,
trayectoria en
and
campañas de desarme y educación para paz.
uh,
World Beyond War, una organización
World Beyond
global no
War,
lucrativa que busca
a
acabar con todas las guerras y
nonprofit
construir una paz
organization that
duradera a
seeks
través de
to
trabajo
end
educativo,
all
activista y
war
mediático.
and
Y la red No
established
to War, No
peace
Tomato, un
through
movimiento internacional
education
que
and
trabaja para deslegitimizar
dialogue.
estructuras
And
militarizadas y promover alternativas pacíficas a la paz y a los
another
conflictos.
organization
Estas organizaciones y muchas
focused on peace
otras
as well. These organizations
constituyen
and many
un
others
tejido global
that
de activismo
constitute
por la paz y la justicia social.
uh, a global movement for
Antes
peace
de
and
dar
social
inicio a las
justice.
intervenciones,
Before
quisiera
starting
recordarles que contamos con interpretación simultánea
contributions,
inglés-español disponible y que podrán enviar
please make
sus
sure
preguntas
that
a través del chat
your
para la sesión final de preguntas y respuestas.
interpretation is enabled
Esperamos
and
generar un espacio
to
de diálogo crítico,
turn in the
respetuoso y constructivo. Con
uh,
esto damos inicio al programa. Permítanme
your commentary
presentar
at
a
the
nuestro primer
end
expositor, David Swanson,
of
que es
event. And
autor,
let me
activista,
present
periodista y presentador de radio. Es cofundador y
the
director
first
ejecutivo de
presenter.
World Beyond War y coordinador de campañas en
Swanson is a
Además, forma
leader
parte
of
del Comité
World Beyond
Internacional de
War
Coordinación de la red
and
No to
part
War,
of the
No to NATO. Hoy nos
No to
ofrecerá
War
las palabras de apertura.
network. He's
David,
going to give us
cuenta
the
con 5
opening
minutos
word.
para esta intervención
You
inicial
have
y
five
tienes la palabra.
minutes for the opening intervention. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to say. Please tell me if you can't hear me clearly or I'm talking too fast or anything else. I traveled 20 hours yesterday to get back to a cold part of the United States from beautiful, warm Venezuela. I put lots of reports and photos and videos at WorldBeyondWar.org. I went there primarily to apologize for the US government murdering people in boats, attacking the country on the 3rd of January, kidnapping the president and first lady, continuing to threaten violence, and of course, compelling at the point of a missile new policies on Venezuelan oil. The trip was packed. We met with government officials. We met with random people in the street. We visited people living in wonderful communes. We went on boats off the coast with fishermen. We engaged in multiple theatrical ceremonies of burying and expelling the Monroe Doctrine. The demands that we heard from people were principally the return of Maduro and Flores, and secondarily various other things, including recognition, formal recognition and embassies, etc., for Venezuela. We heard from Donald Trump, if you could sit through his marathon ramble last night, which I did not, but I read it, that Venezuela's doing great and everything's good. Well, in that case, why not recognize the country and have embassies and have talking and have less chance of insane violence in the future? I think we also need an apology and financial reparations and the departure of the ships and the submarine and the threats. We need the end of the Monroe Doctrine and of Southern Command and the departure of the U.S. military from the region. There is a bill in the U.S. Congress that's not going anywhere fast that would substantively and formally abolish the Monroe Doctrine and everything that goes with it. One thing that we are working on doing is putting President Maduro, or rather his son, with whom we met, in touch with Congress members who are sponsoring such legislation and are most likely to try to be of assistance. And there are rallies coming up in New York City in support of freeing the prisoners there. We also saw things that I, at least, had never learned from any media outlet, US, Venezuelan, or otherwise. For example, we visited the site where 2 missiles from an F-35 hit the top of a hill below a telecommunications tower, destroying communications and electricity, and throwing shrapnel great distances, much greater distances than the very nearby nuclear reactor, a nuclear storage site. So this was an incredible risk, a reckless, inexcusable risk of possibly millions of people, not just the crime that it is on its face. And I have not seen a single journalist ask a single member of the US government about it. We met with people, including children, who were eyewitnesses, who had missiles hit near their buildings, had glass windows shattered and floors shaken and buildings damaged, and saw children paralyzed with fear, unable to move, people screaming for their lives. There's a psychological impact. There's PTSD. There's deaths from heart attacks. This story, I think, we're not hearing from anyone, because I don't know, US media doesn't care or doesn't want it, and Venezuelan media and the world's media either, for whatever combination of reasons. But the place is very, very clearly not run by Donald Trump. It's coated with billboards demanding the return of the president. Everyone we speak with is pretty clear that nothing has been changed. I was on Telesur and they asked me, does it look like this place is run by Trump? And I said, let me see. If you cut me off, Donald Trump needs to be impeached. He needs to be prosecuted and convicted for his crimes. And they went ahead and aired it, which I don't think they would do if the place were run by Donald Trump. The Venezuelans are very, very intent on helping Cuba, on sending supplies to Cuba through Mexico if necessary, as Cuba has been intent on helping Venezuela. And the Venezuelans are very, very interested in helping the people of Palestine and the people of Latin America and of the world. They are very, very generous. We know that billionaires are not the most generous individuals, that the poor are the most generous, and it goes for countries as well. Poorer countries are more generous to other countries. And this is what we saw in Venezuela, where people were generally doing well, very happy, very friendly, very forgiving, very welcoming, and obviously not a threat to anyone. Everybody sunbathing and boogie boarding in the fishing boats, doing fishing. And so we have to correct the lies about Venezuela here in the United States. Wonderful people, wonderful trip, and we need to treat the whole region better.
Muchísimas gracias, David. Tu intervención es muy importante y muy impactante.
Thank you, David, for your intervention. We're going to leave questions for the end of the presentation. Thank you so much. Now we're going to receive Yara Valera from the Cuban Institute of Friendship with the Peoples. Yara is a functionary for ICAP for Latin America. In the themes of peace, they're going to share a analysis about the most recent aggressions about the United States against Cuba. You have 15 minutes between the two of you that you can just read. So, go ahead.
Muchísimas gracias y buenas tardes, buenas noches a todos nuestros estimados compañeras y compañeros.
Good evening, good afternoon to everyone who is joining us, to the people of Latin America and the Caribbean, and to the people across the world. We're speaking from Havana, that the island that has, for the last 60 years, received the most brutal blockade from the United States. And we would like to say that what's happening now to Cuba is not an isolated incident, but is part of a larger strategy that is meant to impose U.S. will on other countries. Cuba has historically resisted these attempts, and for that reason, the Trump administration is trying to suffocate Cuba and any other country that tries to give a model for something different in the world. On the 3rd of January, the forces of the United States violated the sovereignty of Venezuela and killed Cubans, internationalists who were in Venezuela defending Venezuela's sovereignty. Just as Cuba has sent aid to countries that are most needed in the form of doctors and educators to protect the sovereignty of these countries. If they did this in Venezuela, what makes us think that they will do anything different in other countries that try to defend their sovereignty? Even in Cuba, we just a few miles away on the island, we have the illegal U.S. base of Guantanamo. Same way, the Donald Trump administration continues using genocidal arms such as the economic suffocation that has caused an unmitigated economic disaster and humanitarian disaster in our country. From the first time that Donald Trump assumed presidential power, started the persecution
Es
and
decir, incluso antes
economic
de un
war
escenario
against Cuba,
que golpeó a nivel global las cadenas de suministro y los envíos de combustibles alrededor del mundo, como fue
even
la pandemia,
even
ya nuestro país
before
ha estado
the
lidiando con restricciones e interrupciones
pandemic,
en los
when the
flujos
whole world was
combustibles
hit
a través
with
que expedían.
supply line issues
Por
with
otra
fuel,
parte, el
even
29
before
de
that,
enero
Cuba was
de
hit
este año,
by
Trump
sanctions
firmó una
by the
nueva
Trump
orden ejecutiva
administration.
declarando a Cuba como una
Yesterday,
amenaza
Trump
inusual y extraordinaria para la seguridad de
declared
los Estados Unidos. Toda
Cuba
una paradoja, la isla asediada,
an
bloqueada y bajo
extraordinary threat to
amenaza
the
de que
national
su
security
única
of the
clienta
United
resulta
States,
ser la amenaza del victimario. Pero no esperamos
a
menos de quienes nos han
paradoxical statement
reincorporado ya por tercera
when
ocasión,
Cuba is suffering
bajo argumentos totalmente falsos y unilateralmente, a una lista de países que
the effects
supuestamente
of
patrocinan el terrorismo.
this
Se
attack.
amenazó con aranceles a cualquier país que
It has
enviara
been
petróleo a Cuba.
threatened
Buscaban
by
asfixiarnos, paralizar nuestra
any country
economía,
that has
sumir a nuestras
offered
familias
to
en la
protect
desesperanza y
Cuba's
propiciar un cambio de
access to
régimen.
fuel has been threatened with
El 20 de
sanctions.
febrero,
And on the
afortunadamente, el
20th of
Supremo de los Estados
February,
Unidos suspendió estos aranceles
thankfully,
y
the
es hasta el
U.S. Supreme
momento un alivio
Court
momentáneo.
suspended
Pero
these
no nos engañemos,
tariffs.
la declaración
But
de emergencia
let's
nacional sigue
not lie to
vigente
ourselves.
y el imperio no se
The
detendrá.
threat from the Donald
Si
Trump
una vía se
administration
cierra,
is still
tratarán de buscar
active.
otra, porque su
They
objetivo
won't stop
precisamente
looking for
sigue
other
siendo
options to attack
debilitarnos.
us.
Toda esta arremetida viene, por supuesto, acompañada de una feroz
All of
campaña
these
mediática.
means
Mienten y
are backed
tergiversan
up
nuestra
by
realidad para
a
justificar
media
una
campaign
intervención
that
militar contra nuestro
seeks to
país.
justify a
La
military
respuesta de
intervention
Cuba
against our
frente a esta ofensiva
against our country.
es que continuamos actuando con coherencia. En primer lugar, la
The response
denuncia
from Cuba is to
internacional,
continue
además de
acting
aprovechar todos los
with
mecanismos internacionales y
integrity.
las vías diplomáticas
First, with
para
diplomatic
denunciar lo que ha estado
condemnation.
realizando Estados Unidos contra Cuba. Llevamos nuestra voz a la ONU, a la CELAC, al ALBA,
We raise our voice
y
to
toda la respuesta ha sido afortunadamente alentadora en
UN,
términos de
to
en segundo lugar, la
the
voluntad de
Organization of
diálogo.
American States.
Estamos dispuestos a conversar con los Estados Unidos y
And
esto
it's
tampoco es
second
algo
second
novedoso. Ha sido
place,
históricamente la postura de Cuba, siempre bajo
we
las
raise
bases
up our
de
voice,
igualdad soberana y respeto mutuo,
always
sin
under the
injerencia.
principles
No
of
pedimos favores, pedimos
equality
simplemente
and
respeto. Y quiero aclarar que en las últimas semanas se ha
equality under
estado
international
especulando
law.
muchísimo
We're
con
not asking for
supuestas
much, we're just
negociaciones
asking for
a
respect.
escondidas entre determinadas figuras del gobierno y algunas asociadas a determinadas figuras dentro del Partido Comunista de Cuba con supuestos líderes
We've heard about
Marco Rubio,
some
con autoridades estadounidenses.
discussions of
Esto
members
todo
of
es
the Communist
totalmente falso y
Party
forma parte de toda esta labor
with Marco
represiva
Rubio, and
mediática
we
que
have
hemos
to
estado
reject this as
padeciendo.
false.
En
This is
tercer
part of
lugar está la resiliencia y la
the
innovación de nuestro
media
país.
attacks against our
Cuba, a pesar de la
country.
situación, no se paraliza.
Third is
Nuestro país pretende
the
profundizar la
strength of our
transformación de
country
la matriz
in the face
energética.
of these attacks.
Nuestros hospitales
Uh,
continúan brindando sus
our hospitals
servicios. Nuestras
continue,
universidades y
our
los jóvenes
educations
cubanos
and
se
our
adaptan a las nuevas condiciones y se
universities and our
suman a los
schools
hospitales, a las comunidades, a la producción de alimentos.
continue
Se han aplicado un
educating our
grupo de
people.
medidas para mantener cierto nivel,
We have taken
hasta cierto
measures
punto, la vida
to
económica del país y los principales servicios, incluida la
maintain as much
asistencia a
as
personas,
possible
fundamentalmente
the
niños, con
basic
especial vulnerabilidad ante
rights of people and the basic functioning of
esta
our
circunstancia de escasez de
economy
combustible.
and
Y
our
en
daily
cuarto lugar,
activities.
ya para darle la palabra a mi
And
colega
fourth, before I give
estamos
the word to my colleague
un
Gabriel,
mayor activismo y
we
solidaridad alrededor del
are
mundo. Entendemos que
demanding
Cuba resiste
a
y
larger
resiste, y
activism
cuando Cuba
and
resiste, resiste toda la región y resisten todos los pueblos
a
que aspiran a un
larger
mundo.
activism
Entonces, si
across
me
the
permiten,
world.
cederle la palabra
Because when
a mi
Cuba stands
querida
up, the
compañera,
whole region
por
and the
favor.
whole world stands up.
Gracias, Iván. Muchas gracias a todos los organizadores de este
Thank you,
espacio
Ivan,
que
and
nos
thank you
permiten
to all of the organizers of this
dialogar con
space.
ustedes y
That
brindarles
allows us to
este
dialogue with
panorama de
you and
realidad.
share with you
Iván,
a
con
look
toda esa
at what is
intervención,
happening
pues
here.
me alivia a mí de tener que profundizar en otros temas que yo me
Because
quiero
of
referir entonces
Ivan's
específicamente a
presentation,
esa
I'm
pues
able to
resistencia
go a little
que
bit
si
more
bien
deep
comienza desde
into some
Cuba,
other
también ha
aspects.
tenido una respuesta y un paralelismo
This
en la
resistance,
solidaridad internacional, en la solidaridad mundial.
this resistance that we have in
Digo
Cuba
mundial
has to
porque
have a
ha sido
response at
una
a
respuesta
level,
contundente,
regional
firme,
level and an
a lo
international
largo y
level.
ancho del mundo y específicamente, y entendemos con mucha fuerza también aquí en América Latina.
We understand
De
that
hecho, las
this
expresiones de apoyo
resistance
se
has been
hicieron
shown
llegar
with a
desde
lot
el
of
mismo día
strength
2 de
here,
enero,
especially
cuando se
in
supo
Latin
de la
America.
orden ejecutiva firmada por el
when we learned of the executive order by Donald Trump that there were actions
como presenciales, se hicieron manifestaciones en Puerto Rico, en México, en Venezuela,
when we heard of these
incluso
actions,
desde la
there were
cultura,
protests
en
in Puerto
carnavales
Rico
en los que hubo en Brasil,
and even in
también se tocó el
Carnival
tema, hubo
celebrations in Brazil
escuelas
and
de
other
samba que
places.
tomaron
There
el tema
were
Cuba
uh,
para hacer
samba
sus
schools that
presentaciones y en ese
took up
evento
the
también se
cause of
hicieron esta
Cuba
escalada de la
to
hostilidad de Estados Unidos
show
contra Cuba.
in
Incluso en los carnavales
their own
de
ways
Uruguay
the hostility
también
of the United
fueron
States
espacios donde
against
se
Cuba and call
denunció
that
esta
out.
política. Es decir, la solidaridad no ha tenido
The solidarity
reparos en
that we have seen
mostrarse en todos los escenarios que ha podido.
has not had limits. It's been shown in all
Y
kinds
nosotros precisamente estamos
all
muy
kinds
agradecidos de ello. En este
of
sentido,
situations, and we are incredibly
también
grateful
queremos decir que no se ha
for
circunscrito
it.
a esta solidaridad política que ha sido militante, como pueden ver, sino que han adoptado campañas. Ya había
And
campañas que se
this
estaban desarrollando
solidarity
de
has
solidaridad
been
en la
not
región,
just
que estaban
spontaneous, but
encaminadas
it's a
fundamentalmente
part of
a traer
a long
medicamentos,
part of
alimentos, materiales imprescindibles para
militant
poder
activity to
apoyar la
defend
situación
Cuba,
del pueblo cubano.
including
Estas campañas se han intensificado
raising
y a
funds
ello
and
también se
raising
sumó
materials that we need.
la de realizar campañas para la compra de paneles solares. De paneles solares para poder
Including campaigns to raise funds for
buscar
solar
la
panels
soberanía energética. En este
and
sentido,
protect
decirles que, por ejemplo,
the
proyectos que estaban
energy
aquí
sovereignty
en
of
Cuba, como
Cuba.
la Brigada Suramericana, enseguida emitió un comunicado condenando esta escalada de la política. La Red Continental Latinoamericana y Caribeño de Solidaridad con Cuba, que tuvo su quinta asamblea por esos días primeros de febrero, también adoptaron
Latin America Cuba Solidarity Network.
Como continente, como movimiento
That just had
continental,
their
llevar
fifth
adelante esta campaña
meeting.
por la compra de sistemas fotovoltaicos de paneles solares, y eso se ha extendido a
Highlighted
lo
the
largo y
importance
ancho de
of
todo nuestro continente.
this work to get photovoltaic
Nosotros realmente desde Cuba estamos muy
cells
agradecidas con estas manifestaciones. También ha habido
to Cuba.
pronunciamientos de algunos gobiernos de América,
There have
personalidades a nivel
been
internacional.
pronouncements by
México
different
ya va por su segundo
governments.
envío de solidaridad
Mexico
a nuestro
is
país
sending
para
a
apoyar
second
en estas acciones.
ship of aid
Tengo que
to our
decirles
country.
que la solidaridad no
And
solamente
I
se
have to say that
circunscrito a hacer estas
solidarity
campañas,
isn't
sino
just
que
doing these
están
campaigns,
en posición también de hacer un poco de presión para que
but
desde los
also
niveles gubernamentales, sobre todo en aquellos que no se han pronunciado, pues también tengan una postura de apoyo a Cuba y a nuestra revolución.
also pressuring your governments to make positions in favor of Cuba and recognizing the importance of making this pressure to our own government.
Precisamente la primera, mantener esa solidaridad política.
The first thing is to maintain that solidarity, political, militant solidarity, denouncing the U.S. policy against Cuba. They're betting that the average citizen will just forget about these events, but as popular organizations trying to build a better world and based on respect between all countries, I think that we need to maintain alive all of these issues and keep in people's minds the fight that Cuba is doing. And also, it would be good that those who are the movements for peace should join this mobilization in defense of Cuba. And in the case of households that need need extra help, like solar energy to maintain the flow of electricity constantly, because they might have people sick at home or have other special needs. We need to focus on these two really important issues of electricity and also of access to food. And we must keep those in mind and highlight them in our organization. And in third place, I don't think just because it's the third, it's the least, but you should come to Cuba so that you can see the situations that we are going through and see the situations that we are suffering here. There are going to be brigades coming for the 1st of May. May 1st, May Day, and the second would be in June, which is the anniversary. 13th of August. The first colloquium, Fidel to the Future, on August 13th, to lift up the voice of all of those of us who defend the possibility of a new, a better world that's more just, that better world is possible. In whatever ways that we can in our solidarity work, whether we be organizations in Europe or in the United States, Latin America, but for those who can't come during those dates for those projects, you should also then come individually to elevate your thinking and learn from our leaders. What is most important today is to fight for peace, to continue our demand that Latin America be a zone of peace. Ivan said that Cuba has been a country that has been threatened. But we've been threatened because we are a fortress for dignity, a fortress for a bastion for resistance, that we won't allow ourselves to be defeated. And despite suffering so much, we're not giving up on our project. And over everything else, we maintain our own defense and maintain that defense in unity and harmony, always putting the person, the human being, at the center of everything that we have been doing, that we've been developing. Che Guevara once said that to be a revolutionary, to have a profound sense of love, and I think that's what we all are trying to communicate in the and is what we're trying to communicate, to defend, and to maintain. Thank you so much.
Perdón. ¿Todo bien? Agradecemos profundamente esta mirada desde América Latina. Gracias.
Thank you so much.
Por sus
You
reflexiones.
from Latin America. Thank you for your reflections. We're going to continue with Gonzalez Lopez from Mexico. She is a bachelor in international relations, as well as a founder in Observatory of Human Rights. She is also a columnist of the online forum. She has participated in online forums promoting the rights of collectives and
de
women.
diversos pueblos alrededor del mundo,
He
particularmente en
supported
Palestina.
different
En su
fights of
intervención, Daniela abordará la
peoples
perspectiva
around the world,
internacional de
especially in
Estados
Palestine.
Unidos, el
In
trabajo de
her
organización
publications,
y el
she
activismo
talks
contra la
about
guerra
lies
dentro
of the
de
United
su país,
States,
así como la
the
campaña América Zona de Paz.
campaigns against
Daniela,
war,
cuentas con entre
and
12 y
author
15
of
minutos para tu presentación.
America Zone
Te
of
avisaré
Peace.
cuando estamos fuera del tiempo.
Daniela, you
Tienes
have
la palabra.
15 minutes. You have the word.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Primero queremos agradecer a World Beyond War
First, I would like to thank
habernos
World Beyond
invitado,
War for having invited us
específicamente a Gabriel, a este webinar tan importante.
to discuss
América
this
Latina y el
webinar
Caribe,
that's so
desde
important,
Venezuela,
Latin America and
y
Caribbean
desde el Observatorio
region
de Derechos
under
Humanos de los
threat.
Pueblos, que formamos parte
And
de la
from
campaña
the
América Latina, una zona de paz, enviamos
Human Rights
saludos
Observatory
solidario y
for the
fraterno
people,
a todas
we
las
send
personas y organizaciones que están siendo parte
fraternal
de
light
este
to all of the people and
importante
organizations that are being part of this
por la
organization
solidaridad
forum,
entre
and
nuestros
share with
pueblos. Y
solidarity
bueno, una disculpa porque
between
tengo un poquito, con un poco de
between our
gripa y
peoples.
un
Sorry, I've got a
poquito
little bit of a cold.
con tos, pero pues estamos aquí con mucho gusto. Yo iniciaría diciendo que estamos
I would
ante
start
un
by
escenario
saying
mundial de
we
guerra.
are
Ello
living in
tenemos que
front
denunciar
of
las
a
políticas de guerra como
worldwide
parte de las
situation
políticas
of war.
imperialistas
We need
contra los
to
pueblos
denounce
y
the
exigir que se bajen las armas
machinations for
y que
war
hablen los
as a
pueblos y que los
attack against
pueblos
the
puedan
people of the
construir
world,
alternativas
and
propias,
that
no solo a las guerras,
people can
sino también a las
establish
invasiones, al
uh,
militarismo, a las distintas maneras de represión que hay
can
desde
establish
nuestros territorios. En este caso es
organization
muy
that is
importante
outside of
también
war, outside of invasion,
hacer
outside
hincapié
of
que es
the
justamente un momento
destruction of our
fundamental
territory.
para que revirtamos todas las
We're
campañas
living
que a
a
través
fundamental
de
time
los medios masivos de difusión
that
hegemónica lanzan en contra de nuestros pueblos, que se vuelven guerras mediáticas. Por ello decimos, históricamente
that
hemos
we are
aprendido a
living in
enfrentar la
times where
violencia
we are being
estructural
attacked
con una
by
posición firme expresada
media
desde formas de vida comunitarias,
media attacks against
solidarias,
community forms
culturales
of life,
colectivos, de saberes arraigados a
of
nuestros
solidarity
territorios y a nuestros pueblos, lo cual ha permitido fortalecer los procesos de
that changes
resistencia y la lucha de manera creativa y permanente. La militarización es la
the
imposición por la
militarization
fuerza.
and
Es el medio que
is
utilizan los
institution by
Estados Unidos y
force.
la OTAN,
It's
entre otros de
the
sus
medium by
aliados,
which the
para
United
imponer su
States and its
hegemonía,
allies
evitar el libre
impose their
desarrollo de
hegemony,
los pueblos y contener a los
prevent
movimientos
the
sociales que se resisten a
development of
estos fenómenos
different
generados
peoples in the
por la
world.
guerra.
And this
Por lo
starts all
tanto,
of the
es urgente encender las alarmas,
chain of events
alertar
that
y
happen
crear
when war
conciencia
starts.
en la humanidad misma,
We have
de
to
tomar
develop
acciones para
consciousness
detener
in
esta aberración y
humanity to
desenmascarar
take
a los
action to stop
actores
the
intelectuales
aberration
y
and
materiales de esta barbarie que
call
lucran
out
con la
the
industria de la guerra y
intellectual
la
and
muerte,
physical authors
así
of
como también con el
barbarism that
saqueo
leads to death.
de los recursos
We have to
naturales
stop
de
with
los
the
países invadidos. Es
looting
necesario
of
crear conciencia de la
natural resources
necesidad
of
de
invaded countries.
promover transformaciones
It's
sociales
necessary
con
to
gobiernos
promote
que velen por la
social
paz mundial,
transformations
los derechos
for
humanos y la
governments that
defensa de los recursos
keep watch
naturales
for
del planeta.
world peace and the future of our planet and our
Denunciamos las
resources.
maniobras
We
políticas por
denounce
parte del gobierno norteamericano en su
the
interés por el
political
control del
machinations
Medio
of
Oriente y de
the
todo
U.S.
el
government
mundo,
in
a
trying to
costa del
control
despojo y
Middle
la
East and
aniquilación
the whole
de
world
nuestros pueblos y
at the
sus
cost
territorios.
of the
Estados Unidos tiene bases militares en diversos territorios del mundo. Es el país que más países ha invadido.
U.S. is
Habla
the
todo el
country that
tiempo de
has the
democracia,
most
cuando
military bases around
ejecuta
the
y
world
promueve siempre más
and talks
guerras en el
about
mundo.
peace when it's the one that
Vivimos un
promotes
momento
war
histórico
around the
de
world.
definiciones.
We're living
El
a
colonialismo no es
historical
pasado,
moment in
está
of
vivo,
definition.
armado y en guerra contra los pueblos. Hoy adopta
Colonialism
la
isn't
forma del
in the past,
imperialismo
it is
estadounidense y del
in,
sionismo,
alive
que imponen muerte,
and at war
bloqueo,
with peoples all over
ocupación
the world.
y exterminio
It
a
manifests
quienes se
itself in
niegan a obedecer.
imperialism
Frente
today
a ello,
that
afirmamos con
executes
claridad,
those that will not
los pueblos
submit
no
to it.
nacimos para ser
We have to
colonias.
say
La agresión
with
criminal de
clarity,
Estados Unidos
our peoples
contra la República
were not
Bolivariana
born
de
to be
Venezuela No
uh,
es solo un
to be
ataque a un país, es un
colonized.
ataque a todos
The
los
attack
pueblos que
against
luchan por
Venezuela
su
is not
soberanía.
just a country attack
Con
against
esta
one country,
agresión
but it's
se
an
entierra
attack
el
against all
derecho
countries that
internacional y se
fight
impone
for
la ley
their
colonial
liberty.
del más fuerte. Trump gobierna
The international law
con
is
una
being
política exterior
ignored
de guerra
and it's being
permanente,
replaced with
secuestros,
the
chantaje
law
y
of the jungle
violencia
or the
abierta
strong
contra
against
las
the weak.
naciones libres.
Open
Gaza fue laboratorio de exterminio.
war against
Venezuela es el
free countries.
objetivo, es el nuevo objetivo.
Gaza was
Cuba
the
con el bloqueo
laboratory for
genocida
intervention,
mental.
and
Mañana será cualquier
Venezuela
pueblo que se
is
atreva a resistir.
the
El imperialismo no tiene
goal.
fronteras ni límites
Cuba
morales.
is
Por
resisting
eso decimos con fuerza,
and is to be
no
made an
son guerras
example of.
aisladas. Es
These
una
aren't
guerra
isolated
colonial
wars. It's
global contra
one
los pueblos.
global colonial
La
war
sangre
against the people.
palestina, venezolana,
The
cubana,
blood of
saharaui,
Palestinians,
africana y latinoamericana
Venezuelans,
es
Sahrawi,
derramada por la misma
Cubans,
maquinaria imperial.
they're
Frente a
spilled
esta
by the same
maquinaria,
imperial
la
machination,
respuesta solo puede ser
machinery.
internacionalista,
The
organizada y radicalmente
in front
anticolonial.
of this international attack,
Hoy
we can only have
pretenden
international
normalizar el
solidarity.
genocidio en Palestina, la agresión contra Venezuela y Cuba, como si fueran hechos inevitables.
People
No
talk
lo son.
about the
Son
genocide in
crímenes y
Palestine
tienen
or the
responsables.
attacks on Venezuela
Estados
as if they
Unidos
were
e
inevitable.
Israel, sostenidos
They're
por
not
la
inevitable. They're
complicidad de
crimes
gobiernos y corporaciones.
with people who are responsible,
Reafirmamos nuestra solidaridad
governments and
militante con
corporations.
Palestina, con la República Bolivariana de
Our
Venezuela y Cuba.
solidarity with
Defenderlos es
Palestine,
defender el
with
derecho de los
Venezuela,
pueblos a existir, a
defend them,
resistir
and
y a
Cuba,
decidir su
defend them
propio
is to
futuro, sin
defend
amos ni
the
imperios.
right of people all
Es
across the
tiempo de
world
unidad mundial de
to
los pueblos,
decide their own
de
futures.
levantar una sola voz contra el
It's
colonialismo,
time
el
to raise
genocidio
one
y la
soul,
guerra imperial.
one
No pedimos
unique voice
permiso,
against
ejercemos
colonialism and
resistencia.
imperialism.
Basta de violaciones a nuestros derechos humanos
Enough
colectivos como pueblo.
violations of
No más
our collective
impunidad.
human rights,
Alto a las masacres y a los genocidios.
and
Fuera
to
el
the
militarismo
massacres
y el
and
paramilitarismo de
the
nuestros territorios.
genocides.
Nuestro continente debe ser un
Militarism
territorio
out
de
of our
paz,
borders.
libre de
Our
bases
continent should
militares
be
y de armas
a continent of
nucleares.
peace, free
Desde
of
el
military
Observatorio de
bases
Derechos
and
Humanos de los Pueblos, siempre defenderemos las
nuclear arms.
banderas de unidad y la
We
integración
will
de nuestro
always defend the
continente.
banners
Hacemos
of
un
unity
llamado a
and the
desarrollar
defense
una
of our
campaña
continent.
permanente
We make
por
a
la paz,
call
a
to make a
manifestarnos en
permanent
todos
campaign
los
for
rincones
peace,
del mundo contra la guerra,
to
por la
show
paz,
ourselves
la
in all corners
soberanía
of the
y la
world for peace,
autodeterminación de los
for
pueblos.
autodetermination
Desde
of the
México
self-determination
hemos
of
hecho
peoples
diversas acciones solidarias
and
por
sovereignty.
Venezuela,
We have
Cuba y
done
Palestina y
made
lo hicimos
operations
enérgicamente. Hoy más
for
que nunca,
Venezuela,
los pueblos del mundo
Palestine,
nos
and
unimos
Cuba.
contra el
We
ataque
made action
genocida de
here
los
to
Estados
in
Unidos contra
solidarity
Cuba,
with
contra
these
Venezuela
countries.
y contra
We
toda
must see
América
clearly that
Latina
the
y el
U.S.
Caribe.
actions
El
against
imperialismo
Cuba,
no
Venezuela, and
tolera
all
la
of Latin America and
soberanía, no
Caribbean
perdona la
must stop.
dignidad ni acepta que
Imperialism
los pueblos
doesn't
decidan su propio destino. Por
forgive
eso
the dignity
castiga,
that
amenaza,
these
asfixia
countries have
económicamente
attempted to
y
build. That's why it
desestabiliza a quienes se
threatens,
rebelan
attacks,
contra
and
su dominio.
suffocates economically the
Desde
countries
Cuba
that
hasta
have tried
Palestina,
to
los
resist
pueblos
the
levantamos
US
una
attack.
sola voz contra el
From
imperialismo,
Palestine
el
to
patriarcado, el
Cuba,
capitalismo
we
depredador,
raise one
depredador, el
unified
racismo
voice
estructural y el
against
sionismo
capitalism,
como proyecto
patriarchy,
colonial.
uh,
Todas estas formas de
structural
dominación
racism,
están
and
conectadas,
colonialism. All of these
tienen el
forms
mismo
of
origen y el mismo objetivo,
domination are
garantizar la
connected.
acumulación de
They all have
riqueza y
the same
poder para
origin.
unos pocos a costa del sufrimiento de las mayorías.
To
Frente al
steal
imperialismo
the wealth for a
norteamericano,
few while
decimos
the
con
majority
fuerza,
suffer.
no nos van a dividir, no nos
You're
van
not
a
going to divide
silenciar
us. You're not
y
going to
no nos
silence
van a
us.
arrebatar la esperanza.
You're
La
not going to
solidaridad
take
entre
away
los
our hope.
pueblos es
The
nuestra
solidarity
fuerza
to the
y
people is
la
our
lucha por
strength.
la autodeterminación es
And the
nuestro
fight for
camino.
the self-determination is
Cuba
our
no
path.
está sola,
Cuba
Venezuela
is
no
not
está sola,
alone. Venezuela is
América
not alone.
Latina unida, los pueblos del
Amer-
mundo estamos de
Latin
pie.
America is united.
Nuestro proyecto es por la vida, la colectividad,
The
el
people of the world
diálogo, el respeto a nuestra madre
are on
tierra,
our feet.
una paz con
Our work
justicia,
is
dignidad
to
y
dialogue,
libertad.
to work together,
Por eso
to
es que
protect our Mother
decimos
Earth.
con
for peace, for unity, and we speak together. We don't want a peace that's just an absence of justice. We need a peace that has love and that has love and is constructive. One that a love that is not left to only words. A peace with action. End the genocide against Palestine. End the blockade against Cuba. Freedom immediately for Celia Flores and Nicolás Maduro. Get your hands off of our territory. It will fall. It will fall. The empire will fall.
Gracias, Daniela, por aportar elementos tan necesarios para comprender este momento. Y ahora damos la bienvenida a Gabriel Aguirre. Gabriel
Now we're
Aguirre
going to give a welcome to Gabriel Aguirre with World Beyond War. He's Venezuelan and lives in Bogotá, Colombia. He is an activist for peace, solidarity, and international law. And he's been working about the actions against Venezuela and perspective from the ground and the idea of what's going on in Latin America. Go ahead, you have your word. Thank you, Evelyn, and thank you to all the organizations that have been preparing for this event, the conference people. This is a space that has been created with the idea of interchanging reflections and ideas in the context that we're living. We'd like to share specifically the experience that we are going through as Latin Americans. And not just Latin America, but the world. The whole world is found under threat by those who defend war, who defend death, those who continue believing that by the imposition of doctrines of domination against our people, that they're going to be able to maintain that control. And that's why we're living difficult times all across the world. In Latin America, it's a territory that's interesting and important that serves the logic of an empire as a vital space of strategic resource control that exists in this region. Donald Trump has mentioned this in the national security document published last week, under the idea of the Donroe Doctrine, the modern version of the obsolete Monroe Doctrine, that as other the U.S. has looked again towards Latin America to rebuild its influence in what is considers its backyard. This past year, we've had a very difficult time with the United States. The U.S. increased its military presence across the world. It increased paramilitary wars in Paraguay and Panama and Colombia in order to retake key areas, but also to deploy its own military. Last year, the U.S. mobilized 15,000 troops along with warships, planes, and a nuclear submarine. But an equation.
Una de ellas, las más conocidas, es la base Roosevelt Road, que se encuentra en la población de La Ceiba, en Puerto Rico, y desde donde
one of the
se
most
desarrollaron
known of
operaciones
these military bases where the troops were mobilized was in Puerto Rico.
El 14 de agosto del pasado año, y así
Since
sucesivamente
August 14th of last year, there have been aircraft carriers that have been mobilized to the Caribbean waters in an action without precedence, in cooperation with the Southern Command and the Fourth Fleet, with the excuse of doing humanitarian work in the area, which you ended up being an excuse and a launching pad against Venezuela. We lived under the fear of and the whir of planes, and that preceded the bomb on Caracas and other cities like La Guaira. The terror that our country faced, that our people faced in unprecedented organization that involved the participation of 150 airships that was coordinated with paramilitary groups like Delta Force in a blatant and illegal operation against the sovereignty of Venezuela.
Porque no contaba con la autorización del Congreso estadounidense, y aún así desplegaron una operación en nuestro
And even
territorio
so,
que dio
they were able to carry out an operation, an operation that led to the deaths of 150 Venezuelans and 30 Cubans. And that, of course, they sought to terrorize the Venezuelan people, including bombing places that didn't have any military importance, but with the only with the vision of just to generate panic among the Venezuelan people. These deaths were deaths that we don't just honor as people who were countrymen, but people who were victims of the largest military power in the world, this power that violates the principles of the Democratic Charter of the United Nations. For a long time, the U.S. has been the principal promoter of terrorism in the world, because what happened in Venezuela was an act of terrorism. And it shows the double standard, the double knife that they try to include Cuba into the list of countries that are sponsors of terrorism, while in reality, Cuba sends to other countries doctors and educators and other service workers to other countries. The U.S. sends troops to extend death and impose war on the people of the world. I should mention that this has been the conclusion of several actions that the U.S. has done against Venezuela. Venezuela has been fighting against mercenary incursions,
del aislamiento
attacks
político,
against
diplomático
our
e
sovereignty,
internacional, víctima de una forma también de guerra
isolation at
moderna
the
contra nuestro
international
pueblo,
level,
como han sido las
victim of
sanciones contra
a
nuestro país, por cierto, que
multifaceted
no se fue de
war,
Cuba. Estas
um,
sanciones que le han costado a
including
Venezuela
sanctions
cerca de
that Cuba has
120
also
mil
suffered from
millones
a
de
year.
dólares, afectando y
That
lesionando
has
gravemente el
affected
desarrollo
by
de su
$130
economía
billion
y que, por supuesto, tuvieron una suerte de
in its
síndrome de
economy,
Estocolmo al
and
hecho de que
that
su economía
are acting like they have
mangotada durante muchísimo tiempo.
Stockholm
Entonces,
syndrome,
hoy, producto
are
del
celebrating
proceso de
that
flexibilización
because
de las
of
sanciones, entonces hay que celebrar
the flexibilization,
a
they're
quienes
celebrating the
impusieron este
flexibilization
proceso en el
of
país desde el año
sanctions,
2014 y que
rather
lo
than
han
realizing these are
extendido
the same people
durante
that
todos estos
had
años y que las
uh,
recrudecieron
put
inclusive para
sanctions
rendir
on us
con
and made
hambre
them
al
worse,
pueblo
but
venezolano.
in order
Hay que recordar que
to
inclusive,
make
así como lo
the
comentaban
people of
los compañeros
Venezuela
de Cuba,
suffer
en
and give up
épocas
through hunger.
el periodo de la
We can't
pandemia
celebrate
en Venezuela, Estados Unidos
these
no
people
permitió ni
who
siquiera el ingreso de las
are the ones
vacunas
who have been
que por Naciones Unidas correspondían y se
attacking us.
distribuyeron en un
Even
momento en el cual la
in the
humanidad
pandemic, we
se
weren't
encontraba
even
frente a una
allowed
gran
because of these
incertidumbre.
sanctions to get
Estados Unidos, producto de sanciones, no
vaccines that
permitió
the
ni
UN had
siquiera
approved.
que ingresaran al país
The
un
US
conjunto de vacunas.
would not even let
Hemos visto
vaccinations get into the country during
recientemente
COVID. We've seen recently
una acción de paz, una misión de paz que vino a nuestro país
a
con
peace mission that came
activistas
to our
de varios
country
países,
from
principalmente de Estados Unidos,
activists,
de Brasil, de
principally from the US,
Colombia,
but
a
other countries in
testificar
Brazil and Colombia,
los daños
to
ocasionados
testify
producto de estos
the
bombardeos
damages
contra el país.
done
Uno de
by
ellos,
the
como lo mencionaba
bombing
Neira en
of
su
our
presentación,
country.
que realmente nos sorprendió muchísimo porque fue una de las zonas impactada en el estado Miranda, que está a 200 metros de un
One of
reactor
these
nuclear,
situations
y lo
was
cual deja ver,
particularly
por
important.
supuesto, que Estados Unidos no tiene ningún
Bombing
tipo
site
de
in
freno de
the Miranda state,
contención frente a los
near
riesgos y los
a nuclear
peligros que
reactor.
significaría, por ejemplo, una agresión de
And
este
the
tipo que
US has
impactase en un reactor nuclear
no
y que, por
consideration
supuesto, generando
for
actividad radioactiva
uh,
en la zona
the massive
que
damage that
pudiese
could have been
convertirse en un
caused
desastre
by
desde el punto de vista
this
medioambiental y, por
careless
supuesto,
action.
humanitario en la
The
región.
radioactiveness that could
Caracas
have
es una
been
ciudad bastante pequeña,
leaked out that
fue
would
una
have
ciudad que
affected
recibió el
not
mayor
just
impacto
that
de
area,
las
but the entire
agresiones y,
region.
por supuesto, de los bombardeos contra nuestro país y bajo la amenaza contra el país. Muchas personas se preguntan qué está sucediendo
Many
hoy en Venezuela,
people
puesto me queda mucho
are
tiempo para responder
asking
esto.
what's
Trataré de
happening in
decirlo de la
Venezuela. I don't have
siguiente
a lot of
forma,
time to talk
muy
about
clara
that,
y
but
precisa.
I want to say very clearly and
Nosotros,
shortly,
dentro de esta acción
we,
sin precedente por parte de Estados Unidos, donde secuestró
despite
a un
this
presidente en funciones,
unprecedented
donde
action by the US,
secuestró a su esposa, que además es parlamentaria,
in
es un hecho sin precedente del mundo, volviendo a la
this
ley del más fuerte,
kidnapping
que
of
inclusive
a sitting president and
después de la Segunda Posguerra, el
sitting
mundo se había puesto de acuerdo en torno a un
sitting
conjunto
first
de
lady who's
normas y
also
elementales para tratar de que no se impusiera la ley del más
Congress.
fuerte. Bueno, hemos vuelto
We're
nuevamente
returning
a esa ley
to
del más fuerte. Estados Unidos mantiene sus tropas
the law
desplegadas
of the jungle,
en
the
el
law of
Caribe
the
Sur,
strongest.
mantiene portaaviones en el Caribe Sur, mantiene
The
una
U.S.
intensa actividad
still
a través de sus
maintains
bases
a
militares en el Caribe,
aircraft
principalmente en Puerto
carrier
Rico,
and
y
fleets in
recurrentemente
the
amenaza a Venezuela
Caribbean,
con lo que
and
ellos
is
denominan una segunda ola
consistently
de agresión. Esa segunda ola, estamos hablando de un nuevo ataque
threatening
continental
Venezuela
contra un
that it
país
will
muy importante
do a
contra el
second wave of
país.
attacks
Y la
on
situación que
Venezuela.
tenemos en esta
And
circunstancia
this
es que
situation that we
estamos
have
en una
in this
situación de una
circumstance,
negociación con rehenes. Estamos
we're
frente
having
al hecho de que un
we're
secuestrador apunta a tu familia
negotiating
y te
with
está
hostages.
exigiendo que entregues
It's like
tu
if
dinero,
someone
que
would
entregues
have
tus pertenencias y
hold
que
your family
sencillamente
at
te
gunpoint
rindas frente a lo que
and
ese
demand
secuestrador
that you
exige como demandas.
give him
Esa es
your
la situación
things,
que estamos nosotros
give
peligrosamente
him
enfrentando
give
en
him
Venezuela. A
your
pesar de
house.
esto, el
And that's
clamor
the
y el
situation that
llamado
we are
que hace
facing
nuestro
in
pueblo
Venezuela.
venezolano es un llamado a la
The
paz, es un llamado a la tranquilidad,
but the demand
es un
that the people
llamado
of
a la
Venezuela are
estabilidad.
making is a
El
demand for
conjunto, la gran
peace, for
franja de la sociedad
stability.
venezolana,
Uh,
indistintamente de sus posicionamientos políticos e
Groups
ideológicos,
across
hoy
the
defiende
political and
la
social
necesidad de
spectrum
construir
in
nuestro país y de
Venezuela
mantener la paz.
uh,
Relaciones
are all
con
calling
distintos
for
países, totalmente, pero no puede ser nunca bajo la amenaza, bajo la coerción y bajo la coacción.
peace and
Nosotros
for
creemos
calling for
que es
reestablishing
importante hoy
Venezuela
más que nunca
into
tratar
the
de echar por tierra
international
y de integrarlo una
scenario
vez
into
por
the
todas a esa
international
doctrina Monroe. Y eso lo vamos a lograr, como lo decía
into
Daniela, con la articulación
the
de todos los
international community
movimientos. Es un
without
momento
pressure.
de, a pesar de nuestra diversidad y a
And
pesar de
despite
nuestras
all
distintas
of our
visiones
diversity and our
sobre
different
elementos muy
visions
puntuales y
about
específicos, es un momento de alcanzar y
very
construir la
different and
unidad
important
de
topics,
organización y
it's
de movilización de
time to
todos los
build
pueblos, no solamente
peace and
latinoamericanos, sino del
unity
mundo. Todos quienes
among
se posicionen en favor de la vida,
all the people
en
of the
favor de la
world
paz, en
in
favor del
favor of
derecho que
life,
tenemos los
in
pueblos a
favor
la
of peace,
autodeterminación,
in
al
favor
libre y
of the
soberano desarrollo
self-determination of
independiente
the
de nuestras
peoples
naciones. En esa misma dirección, quienes nos
and the
encontramos
sovereignty
defendiendo estos
of our
principios,
nation.
es momento de sumarnos en plataformas de acción
It's
común de
time
resistencia
to
frente a los planes
unite
hegemónicos
across our
del
platforms
imperialismo. Estamos
against
seguros
imperialism and
que
hegemony.
será la acción
We're sure
decidida de los pueblos
that
del
it will be
mundo quienes podrán
the concerted
efectivamente
action of the people
enfrentar
of the world
una nueva
that will
oleada de agresión
eventually
contra nuestro pueblo. El año
be able to
2026 va a ser un
resist
año sin lugar a dudas bastante
a new
complejo,
wave of aggression against
especialmente para los pueblos
the
latinoamericanos.
different countries of the world.
Y
Especially
frente a esto,
2026 will be a
queremos
key year,
pedirle a todas las
especially for
organizaciones, a los
the Latin
movimientos de
American
paz,
peoples
a las fuerzas que defienden
in
la
this
vida en el
fight.
mundo,
And so therefore I
que
asked all
puedan
of
tomar
the groups
posicionamientos en
here
torno
that
a la
if
situación de
you
Latinoamérica,
can
que
please
puedan volver
take
su mirada a Latinoamérica y expresar
positions
la solidaridad
and
con nuestros
turn to
pueblos.
see
Así
Latin
también
America
entenderemos nosotros que otros
to
pueblos
defend
muchos
the
también
peace
demandan la solidaridad de los pueblos
and
latinoamericanos. Y
that
en
our
esa
people
dirección estamos
demand
seguros
peace.
que hay que avanzar. Hoy más que nunca,
And I'm sure
nuestro
that
pensamiento está y
today,
sigue circunscrito
more
a
than
la
ever,
necesidad de abolir la guerra
we
en todas
need
sus formas
to
y todo lo que ello significa.
abolish
El
war
militarismo,
in
el
all of its ways.
armamentismo y, por
It's
supuesto, toda la
armamentism
ideología que impone
and all
la muerte
ideologies
por
that
encima de la vida.
impose death above life.
Gracias, Gabriel. Muy importante escuchar la perspectiva desde el terreno.
Thank
Y
you.
me
It's
gustaría ahora agradecer
very
nuevamente a
important
todos los
to hear
panelistas y
from the ground.
abrirnos para la sesión de preguntas y respuestas.
And I'd
Entonces,
like
les
to open us up
invitamos a
for
compartir sus
the
preguntas en el chat
question and answer
y le pedimos que,
section.
si es
Please put
posible,
your
indique
questions
a
in the
qué
chat.
ponente va dirigida su pregunta. Voy a revisar el chat ahora.
I'm going to check the
Y
chat
ya
now.
veo que hay una pregunta acá.
And I see that there is a question here.
Entonces, voy a hacer la primera pregunta y así le quedan tiempo para pensar en las próximas. Bueno, primera pregunta desde el señor Said Nassim Sihaj.
First question from
Perdóneme
Said.
por la pronuncia.
Sorry for the
Presidente y
pronunciation.
representante internacional de la Comisión Internacional de Derechos Humanos de Bangladesh, Consejo Ejecutivo Central, acreditado ante la ONU y la Unión Europea, representante humanitario global. Entonces, esta pregunta está en el chat
So
en
this
inglés y
question
voy a
is in
decírtela
the
en
chat in
español.
English, and I'm going to say it in
Bueno,
Spanish.
son dos preguntas, la verdad.
So there are two
La primera
questions.
pregunta es
So
que, ¿en qué
first is,
etapa
at what
debería
stage should
integrarse de manera
prosecutors be
sistemática los
systematically
fiscales de
integrated
las
into
investigaciones
multidisciplinary
multidisciplinarias de
child
defensa y
advocacy
protección de la niñez
investigations
para
to
garantizar
ensure
tanto la
both
integridad probatoria
evidentiary
como
integrity
una
and
protección
child-sensitive
sensible a las
protection?
necesidades del
And how
niño o
can
la
early
niña?
prosecutorial
Y la
involvement
segunda,
avoid
¿cómo
secondary
puede una
trauma while
participación
strengthening
temprana de
charging
la
decisions?
Fiscalía evitar
And the
la
second is,
revictimación secundaria al mismo tiempo que fortalece
how
las
can early
decisiones de
prosecutorial
imputación?
involvement avoid secondary
Bueno,
trauma
esta es
while
la
strengthening charging
primera
decisions?
pregunta.
Okay,
¿Quién
here's our
desea
first question.
responder primero?
Would anyone like to respond first? This was from
No sé
Sir
si
Syed
es...
Nasim
Por
Siraj
supuesto que
Rudro,
deseo antes
Chairman and
responder un
International
poco,
Representative,
pero
International
bueno,
Human
creo que
Rights
es una
Commission,
materia muy
Bangladesh.
específica que tiene que ver más con elementos de derechos humanos, con el tema jurídico, legal, por supuesto, de la Fiscalía y los ministerios
One
públicos de
of
cada país.
the aspects
Sobre
of this
esto hay
question that I could
opiniones y, por
answer.
supuesto, cada uno de nuestros panelistas también tiene posicionamientos.
Everyone's going to
Pero
have their own
yo
opinions,
le
but
pediría que quizás pudiésemos
I would
compartir esto
ask
vía
that
correo,
if
intercambiar un poco más sobre estos temas
we
para poder
could
centrarnos en la agenda
exchange
que
some of
nos
these
exige
ideas
el día de hoy. Así que
on
ese sería
over
mi
email
comentario muy,
and
muy
continue
corto.
this conversation. That's my very short comment.
Gracias, Gabriel. ¿Alguien más quisiera
Anyone else?
comentar esta pregunta?
Anyone else who would like to ask a question?
Bueno, tengo otra pregunta acá, que es, ¿qué estrategias regionales podrían fortalecer una agenda común de paz? ¿Alguien gustaría de
What
intervenir
spaces
sobre?
could we develop to
Voy a poner la
Bueno, sería importante,
base of
como
peace.
ya habíamos mencionado justamente,
It would be important to, as we have previously said, that all the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean
una zona de paz. Eso es muy
is to
importante
reinforce the
y sobre
declaration
todo
of
también generar
Latin America as a
espacios,
zone of peace,
encuentros
and to
desde en los
establish
territorios, como se ha venido haciendo,
places
porque
of
bueno, desde
meeting
ahí
in
también
our
surgen las
different
ideas
territories,
específicas
different
y más
spaces,
importantes para los
because from
momentos
those
coyunturales que venimos
meetings
enfrentando. Entonces,
will come
creemos que eso es muy
different
importante y
suggestions and
sobre todo
ideas.
también
And
mantener
before all
una
else, it
línea
would be
específica
to maintain a
como
specific line
movimientos, como
as a
organizaciones
movement, as
que a nivel
organizations,
internacional
that
estamos
at the international level, we
constantemente
are
promoviendo la creación
constantly
y estos espacios de paz en
promoting
nuestros territorios, pues
making
generar líneas estratégicas de acción
places of
que también nos
peace in
permitan
our
incidir en
areas,
otros movimientos, no tan solo en América
and
Latina y el Caribe,
also
sino también a
unite
nivel
with other
internacional, como
organizations
ya
that
bien
are
lo
working not
mencionaba
just in
también
Latin America
Gabriel.
and the Caribbean, but that work worldwide.
Muchísimas gracias, Daniela.
Thank you so much,
Si me
Daniela.
lo permiten también.
Sí, por favor.
O sea, existen ya de facto redes de organizaciones, coaliciones por la paz.
There
No solo
are
en la
networks
región,
of
sino incluso a escala global.
coalitions for peace,
Pienso que
not
siempre el
just in the
desafío que
region,
tenemos las
but
organizaciones es la
globally. I think
articulación
the
con otros sistemas de alianza,
challenge that
otras
we
organizaciones,
have as
precisamente por
organizations is to make those connections with other
gran variedad de criterios que
organizations
pueden
because of
existir en
the
torno a los temas de paz, las cuestiones
many
de soberanía, las
different
perspectivas
criterias that
sobre
people
determinados conflictos o fenómenos
want to
que se dan
consider
dentro de
of
las relaciones internacionales.
sovereignty and
Pero sí pienso que es crítico
international
a la hora
relations.
de asumir
But I think it's critical that at the
perspectivas
time of
distintas
assuming
sobre lo que narran los
different
medios de
perspectives
difusión, sobre todo occidentales, que son
compared
los que
to what
dominan a escala global la narrativa que tratan
the
también
dominant
de
narrative
imponer.
say,
Cuba específicamente es un
the
caso que
narratives that
como
they're
tal
trying
periodista
to
cubano está
impose against
lidiando
Cuba.
con tergiversaciones, con falsedades, con
We have to
medias
constantly
verdades
be
que
defending
en muchas
ourselves
ocasiones se
against
enuncian en muchos de estos
lies
medios,
and
pero sin
falsities
embargo a
and
través de las
accusations
distintas redes
by
de
medias that
solidaridad, de paz que existen alrededor del mundo, hemos
we have
tratado
to
también de
communicate
posicionar
across all of
la
our different
verdad de Cuba.
networks of peace and
Pienso
solidarity
que en una arista
to
debe ir
tell
en
the truth
torno a
about
eso,
what's
la
actually going on in
articulación
Cuba.
y los discursos que
So I think that's
desde
what's
las
most important
organizaciones de paz y las
is
organizaciones progresistas
communication and joining up with
se están
these other
generando. Y por otra
organizations
parte también la
and
ayuda desde el punto de
communication.
vista material
And
y de intercambio
uh,
de
also
delegaciones,
important is the
personalidades que
material
puedan
exchange of
intercambiar
people
en
and
cada uno de estos espacios
delegations
que se pueden propiciar,
in all
como
of
mencionaba
the spaces that we
la compañera
can.
Daniela anteriormente, y de manera puntual, ¿no? Entre las propias
And
organizaciones, no necesariamente esperando
to
por la
be
existencia de algún foro o algún cónclave
to meet with each
que
other quickly, not
pudiese
wait
reunir a
for a forum
muchísimas
or
organizaciones de paz, que por supuesto
a
eso es
formal
sumamente
invitation,
importante,
but to
propicia la
communicate
confluencia de
and
muchísimas
unite with each other
personalidades, individuos que están abogados por
across
los
our
temas de paz
different people or
en un
different
mismo espacio.
personalities that are interested in
Pero
this
bueno,
question of
creo que
peace.
fundamentalmente irían
But I think
en esas
fundamentally it
tres
would
líneas.
be
Una tiene que ver con la articulación, con
that
cómo
those three lines, one
verdaderamente todas
joining
estas
up
distintas redes podemos
between all the
construir
different
y al
networks,
menos conocer las perspectivas que existen en cada una de
and
nuestras
to
redes
get to know
y por
the
otra parte también
perspectives that
propiciar
are
una
existent
mayor
in all of our different
interacción,
networks.
un mayor
Second,
flujo
to
de
promote
interacción entre las organizaciones que
a
defienden la
greater
paz.
interaction and exchange between our organizations.
Muchas gracias, Iván. Gabriel, ¿quiere intervenir también o?
No, yo creo que ha quedado un poco respondido ya la pregunta.
Perfecto.
Okay.
Bueno, pasamos a la próxima pregunta que es, desde otras partes del mundo, por ejemplo, Europa, África y Asia, ¿cómo podemos
From other parts of the
expresar
world, so
nuestra
Europe,
solidaridad y apoyar las
Africa,
acciones de
Asia,
Estados
how
Unidos en
can
América
we
Latina y el Caribe?
have solidarity with the
¿Quién me gustaría
action against the
responder?
action of the United States
Si
what
me
they're doing?
permite,
Por favor, Iván.
in Latin America.
Disculpe que solicite la palabra con tanta premura. Pero bueno, esto tiene que ver también con otra pregunta que vi en el chat del grupo.
Yeah,
que
if I could step in to speak on this question, it's related to another question on the chat. We're organizing an event in August. The organization that's been the principal organizer of this event for Fidel Castro is the Fidel Castro Center. There are some co-hosts that are also working on the design and the formation of this space. We can use our platform HeliCap. And you can also find the information on the Centro Fidel Castro website. And for the question of the European and Asian African groups, what can they do? There are definitely groups and coalitions of different organizations at the international level that are working on these. There already exist several of them, and the question is just to unite them and organize them. There are many peace organizations that are already working on this, including in Europe and Asia, that are condemning the genocidal policies of the U.S., not just against Cuba, but against all of Latin America and the Caribbean. That also support the proclamations of Latin America as a zone of peace. And the BRICS as a social forum, I think it's a very strategic place because it allows us to establish a institutional link to these government of this emerging coalition that is trying to act against the dominant imperial powers. There's also the form of SOLAC, the Cuba Solidarity Movement in all the regions of the world. And solidarity organizations that you can link up with. Cuba has always been a place of solidarity with not just Cuba, with all of the other colonial situations that exist in Palestine, Sahrawi people, the independence of Puerto Rico, and all of the other fights that are going on across the continent, across the world. It's part of the internationalist vision that has been fermented by the Cuban Revolution. There are many that we don't know. There are many organizations that we don't know we'd love to meet and talk with. But I think that could be part of the response. That could be a response to.
Muchísimas gracias. Y tengo otra pregunta acá, que es,
okay, thank you so much. I have another question here.
¿Cómo son afectados y qué papel puede jugar la juventud en estos procesos?
How are the youth affected and what role can they play in these processes?
¿Cuál es el papel de la juventud?
What is the role of the youth? We got to see which is the youngest among our presenters. I think we got to ask Ivan again. We think it's completely important, the role of young people in all of these processes, the formation of a culture of peace. And we have also mentioned in other moments that it's not just the absence of conflict, but a whole series of conditions so that society can live together in harmony. And this comes through economic development, stability, security, eradication of imperialism that is dominant today across the world. And this work gets the young people, not just from the media point of view, that not just something led by influencers, but controlled by influencers, but that young people be protagonists and
Pero
principal
sin duda,
actors
una de las aristas que
in these
puede ser es
struggles.
precisamente el tema comunicacional. Necesitamos que en un mundo en el que cada vez los jóvenes tal vez tengan un poco
We
más
need
de
a
apatía
world
por enfocarse en determinada militancia
in a
política,
world
en
that
conocer
young people
sobre determinados fenómenos que ocurren
are
a
more
nivel
and more
internacional. Consideramos que es sumamente
apathetic.
necesario
We
llegarle
think
a
it's
través de los
incredibly
códigos
important to
comunicacionales que ellos
reach
quieran
them
que
through
resulten
all
atractivos
the
para ese
different
sector de la
communication methods
juventud y
that we have
llegar a
today
una mayor
to make
cantidad
something
de
that
jóvenes.
is
Pero también
attractive
tienen que
to
asumir
young people.
tareas y retos
But we also
sin
have
duda que
to
son
take on
necesarios para
the challenges
las
that
amenazas que estamos viviendo hoy. El caso de la
are
familia es uno,
necessary
por
to
ejemplo, ir y darle pecho a los
challenge
desafíos que
the
están
threats that we are living
enfrentando los
today, like
pueblos alrededor del mundo, estar allí,
the blockade
acompañar
fleet
a los pueblos
is
en lucha,
a major one.
que eso
While
también
we also
retroalimenta
support the
muchísimo
people
a los
around the
jóvenes, sobre
world that
todo a
are
aquellos que
fighting.
no tienen algún tipo de experiencia en este
Uh,
tipo de cuestiones. Y la
Young people
preparación,
can learn a lot
la formación política
from these,
es también
and
clave
we also
para
must work on
que sigan
political
emergiendo
formation and
nuevas
ideological
generaciones de
formation.
individuos con este interés de fomentar la solidaridad internacional,
We
de
must
conectar
foment the solidarity,
muchas de las
develop the
causas alrededor del
solidarity
mundo, porque como se ha
uh,
mencionado aquí, el caso de Cuba, el
to
caso de
support
Venezuela,
all
el
of these
caso de
different
Palestina,
causes around the world.
no son
Cuba,
cuestiones
Venezuela,
aisladas,
Palestine, these are
forman
not
parte de toda una estructura,
isolated
forma
issues.
parte de
They're
toda una
part
crisis,
of a,
forma parte de todo
a
un
structure,
sistema que
a system
ha tratado de oprimir a los pueblos
that
alrededor del
has
mundo. Y sea el caso de
attacked
Cuba, Venezuela, Palestina,
people all
así
around the world.
como otras
In case
causas
of Cuba,
han sido ejemplos,
Palestine, Venezuela,
los
these
más
are just
icónicos, tal
examples,
vez en los
the
más
most iconic
recientes
examples
momentos, pero que ha
and
sido
most recent
histórico.
examples, but these
Pienso que por
are
ahí, tal vez si algún
part
compañero
of all one struggle.
pudiese complementar
Maybe
algo, tal vez
one of my colleagues could
mi
also
elaboración y mi pensamiento pueda agregar algo más a este debate.
can contribute to this debate as well.
Gabriel o Daniela.
Gabriel or Daniela, would you like to?
No, solamente muy rápido. Bueno, acá en México hemos, digamos, como una de las cuestiones que nos ha funcionado para atraer a las juventudes, justamente ha sido a través del arte y la cultura.
One of the things
Consideramos
that
que
we've been
esta
trying to do
línea
in
es una línea
Mexico is
estratégica
that we've tried to
y
reach
bueno,
the
en la
youth
solidaridad con
through
las
art
justas
and
luchas de
culture
los pueblos, como
in
ya lo
solidarity
decía el
with the just
compañero
fight of
Esteban,
the different
pues
people of the world
esto nos ha
as
funcionado
our
bastante bien.
uh,
En México, por ejemplo,
and in
la
Mexico, this has
solidaridad
been
con
something that
Palestina, con
has
Cuba, con
worked
Venezuela,
incredibly well. In the
siempre lo
solidarity
medimos,
with
no,
Cuba, with
no es un
Venezuela,
acompañamiento,
with
sino que nosotros
Palestine,
acá
it's not
decimos la presencia de la
it's not
juventud
just
rebelde, militante,
leading
pues es a
the
través
youth,
también
but
de la guerra para la vida contra el
allowing the youth
militarismo, contra el
to lead
imperialismo,
themselves
y hemos
and
estado
to
organizando,
be leaders in the fight
por
against
ejemplo, brigadas
militarism
moralistas
and
por Palestina, por Venezuela,
in
actualmente por
defense of
Cuba, lo que
Palestine,
hemos estado
Venezuela, Cuba.
impulsando y ha sido un espacio
We're
fundamental de
pushing it
encuentro
forward, and this has
también
been
para
a
fortalecer
fundamental space
pues
of
la activación de la
meeting
juventud
and
en México y bueno, esto también en
activation
toda
of
América
the
Latina
youth in
donde
Mexico and
pues ha
all of
funcionado y tenemos que seguir reforzando estos
and we
espacios
have to continue
para
to
seguir
reinforce
aglutinando porque tenemos también desafortunadamente
because
estos medios
these movements
hegemónicos de
because we
difusión
are also
que
coming up
aniquilan
against
esta
unfortunately
creatividad anti y
these
rebelde de nuestras juventudes.
hegemonic
Entonces tenemos también que
discourses,
crear
hegemonic narratives
algunas
that limit
alternativas para que podamos
these
atraer esa atención. En México nos ha pasado mucho
limit these spaces
y
of
bueno,
resistance.
desafortunadamente
In
pues
Mexico,
algunas
it's something that has
pues
happened to us a lot.
algunos sectores
And
juveniles
unfortunately,
no
there
están
are
muy
some
activos, pero
sections
sí
of
otros sí.
the youth
Entonces,
that
bueno, ahí
are not
estamos
very
haciendo
active, but
siempre
others are.
esas propuestas para que pues se atraiga a estas juventudes.
And so
Yo nada
we
más
are
eso, algo muy poquito porque
developing
el tiempo muy
these
corto, pero
spaces as a way that that give a voice.
Muchísimas gracias. Iván, veo
Thank you so
que
much.
Carmen está preguntando sobre el encuentro en Cuba en agosto.
I see
No sé si
Carmen is
puedes
asking about the meeting in
compartir un
Cuba
poco más sobre.
in August. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Es un evento que está todavía en plena construcción.
It's an event that is still under construction. We're designing still the spaces, academic spaces that we are going to use. Also looking to see more community spaces to include, of course, issues related to peace. But no, I couldn't give right now an agenda about exactly everything that we're going to do. So just want to comment that colloquium will be realized from the 10th to the 13th of August. That despite the scenario that we're living in right now and the difficulties that we're living in our country with this hostile policy against the U.S., we're trying to maintain things as austere as possible without a lot of luxuries.
Que identifique la obra y la vida de Fidel, y no pretendemos posponerlo ni
but we're not planning on postponing it or eliminating this possibility that in the 100th year of Fidel, that our comandante will be remembered well by this event, and will be celebrated by our comrades that are coming from all over the world. I'd like to add one thing. I think it's important that we should be able to progressively keep uniting our forces, uniting our energies for the construction from all over the world. Our coalitions that are present all over the world. We have to be much more creative. We have to develop much more capacity to amplify our message. What we are really trying to do by saying that the threat that war has for not just humanity, but for the existence of life on Earth, it's real. We can't allow violence. We can't allow complicity. We're on the doors of a new world. We're on the doors of a conflagration that has the chance to be 150 times more destructive than the Second World War. As it's been said, as Trump said, the U.S. could destroy the world 150 times over. And he said it with a laugh. He said it cynically. And in front of this reality, we have to take positions. We have to take action. It's not just a contemplative space. It's moment to act. And so I want to take advantage of this space to say hi to and highlight the work of people and organization that we have done, that we have been working on in the space, in all of our spaces. I think from somebody from Venezuela, like I have seen the work that we are doing in Venezuela, the work that Cuba has had solidarity with Venezuela. Daniela has been a major activist in Mexico to defend Venezuela. We have a lot of creativity in this space. And even though it might not be recognized always, but I'd like to thank the people from ICAP, especially Ivan and Yara, What we're doing is pretty easy. It's coming to have a meeting with electricity. We just sit down in front of a computer and say what we have to say. What we're doing now that is incredibly simple in Cuba is now, because of the blockade, one of the most difficult things that you can do, to sit down in front of a computer and have a meeting. Because of the lack of fuel, because of the lack of energy, that tries to isolate Cuba and keep its voice outside. So it's a way to make every single day the life a little bit more intolerable for the people of Cuba, but they're an example of resistance and an example of consciousness that it's a blessing that we have from the people of Cuba that despite all of the things that they are going through right now, they are still coming to join in these spaces of solidarity with other places in the world. And so I would like to mention this briefly because I think it's important. Thank you, Gabriel. We've come to the end of time for question and answers. Thank you for all of your questions and comments. And to close, we are going to have Sean Conner, the International Peace Bureau, Sean Conner. And he has a master's with conflict management. He has worked in Center for Cross-Cultural Study in the United States and community development endless project. I'll now offer the closing words to Sean Conner.
Gracias a todos los ponentes, también a los intérpretes de
thank you to all the speakers and the interpreters.
Una sesión muy importante.
It's been a very important session.
Seguir tras las palabras de Gabriel, que fueron tan
I think it's difficult to follow Gabriel's words to close, but I just a couple of thoughts to finish the session today. I'm American. I live now in Germany, in Berlin, but I also lived many pair of formative years for me in Nicaragua, learning about the story of the history of U.S. intervention in Nicaragua, which was such a horrible war for all the Nicaraguan people. And seeing the exact events of the past happening now in Venezuela and Cuba and all the American countries, very difficult. The John Roy Doctrine and the security you can't accept. We can't accept the John Roy Doctrine for 1 minute. We have to resist and fight against these attacks. They have explained, the presenters have explained well, imperialism isn't new and U.S. imperialism isn't new. And as we see this geopolitical tensions increase, we're having a greater risk for war that will affect the whole world. It's important to note that the majority of European governments did not condemn the actions of the U.S. While the UN, the majority of the European countries in the world have condemned the U.S. blockade against Cuba. But because of the geopolitical changes that we're seeing at the world level, it might change the countries that are in favor of human rights. These countries, in reality, they don't stand by those commitments. There's a lot to do. I had asked before at the beginning. The speakers have said somewhat we can do. Find local groups. Wherever we are, there are local groups that we can connect with to create change. And I've also put a link to an initiative of the Progressive International, the convoy that is going to Cuba March 21st. They're calling for actions across the world, including in front of the U.S. embassies in all of the world, to protest the imperialism that we're seeing all over the world. And we have to do a lot. We have to donate to the initiatives that are already acting in solidarity with the Latin American people. And we have to educate. There's lots of American propaganda that is being promoted everywhere, and it's important that we combat this misinformation and that we talk clearly about the current situation. There's a lot more to do, but we have taken a step today, and let us remain together, continue walking towards peace, solidarity. And may everyone have a good day, night, wherever you are. Thank you, Sean. Estamos a little bit over time, but I would like to give the last word to the commentators.
Quisiéramos agradecer
we would like to thank World Beyond War and all the organizations that have participated.
Incluso ahora recientemente un mensaje en el chat de la proyección de este webinar de David Swanson, que quería que también
I wanted to also speak quickly about a news article that I just saw, that I just got a notification about, and that was a terrorist attack that was happened today in Cuba in Daniela. It's something that's under investigation, but it's happened. The news just happened just came out in the time that we were in this discussion, and it's incredibly worrying.
Algo que podemos sacar del contexto dentro de toda esta maquinaria de agresión que los Estados Unidos ha estado tratando de fomentar contra Cuba.
This is worrying because of all the current situation that the U.S. is trying to impose on Cuba. They're still investigating. At least one part of the terrorist groups have been killed, and another have been wounded.
También fue herido en el momento en que fueron a interceder, ¿no? Porque o sea, es una práctica normal que cuando ingresa alguna embarcación no identificada proveniente de otro país, que las tropas guardias fronteras entonces indaguen acerca de
there have been reports that the Coast Guard opened fire on this unidentified boat coming towards Cuban soil.
Terroristas era precisamente el de atacar porque venían armados, no venían con ningún tipo de interés pesquero.
And it was revealed that this boat was carrying arms. Just to let people know before the news gets out and before there are false reports. This is something that Cuba has lived before, attempts at invasion. And so we are asking people to remain vigilant and educate yourself through reliable sources.
todo lo que está aconteciendo acá en Cuba. Muchísimas gracias reiteradas a todos.
So that you're not led astray about what's going on here in Cuba.
Pues yo solamente también decir que
And I
hacemos
would
un
like to just
llamado a
that
todos los
we should
pueblos
make a
del
call
mundo,
to all of
a
the
todas
people of the
las
world,
organizaciones,
all the
redes
organizations
internacionales.
and
Hoy
the
es un momento de una
international
gran
groups.
unidad,
This is a
tanto
moment
en la
of great
acción como en
unity
el trabajo
in
por la paz
action,
en el
justice,
mundo.
word
Hoy los
for peace in the
pueblos
world.
tenemos que
The,
seguir
the people of the world
unificando nuestras justas
have
luchas,
to
pero sobre todo salir a las calles,
remain united
tomar nuestros
in our
territorios,
just
generar
battles.
amplios y colectivos avances y movimientos por la paz mundial. Ese tiene que ser nuestra tarea fundamental y sobre todo exhortamos a las juventudes también en el mundo que sigan
We
estos
demand
canales, que sigan estas redes, que sigan este webinar, que
the youth
sigan
of the
estas
world
charlas para
also
que fortalezcamos
follow
la
these
presencia juvenil en esta
webinars, these
justa
chats,
lucha por
these
la
events
vida, por la paz en el mundo. Hoy es
as
muy
we struggle
necesaria esta
for
amplia unidad
peace
y sobre
in the
todo
world.
que sigamos adelante
We need
en todos
to
los
demand that
rincones,
type of unity
exigiendo
and in
enérgicamente que
every
nuestros
corner
territorios queremos que
demand
sean zonas
energetically
libres de
that
paz.
our territories be a
Muchísimas gracias,
zones of peace.
Daniela y Iván, por las consideraciones finales. Espacios como este son esenciales, sobre todo cuando parten desde América Latina y hablan para América Latina, reafirmando nuestra capacidad de pensar y defender la paz desde nuestras propias realidades y voces. En nombre del International Peace Bureau, World Beyond War y la red No to War, No to NATO, agradecemos profundamente su participación. Gracias a nuestros panelistas y a todas las personas que nos acompañaron hoy.
Thank you to
Gracias al
everyone here
internet también.
everyone
Muy
who
buenas
joined us today.
noches y hasta
Thank
la
you to our
próxima.
panelists and have a good evening.
Sofía, mejor, Daniela.
Un abrazo fraterno a todos.
Gracias.
Gracias, buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Yes.